I'm an S-rank Omega. The Cole family adopted me. After an accident, my adoptive brother marked me, and I ended up pregnant with his baby. I tried to run, but he found me and made me marry him. My adoptive brother promised that once the baby was born, our slate would be clean. I knew he was supposed to enter a marriage alliance with the Lowell family heir. After I gave birth, I left. 2 years later, he found me with our child in tow. His voice was hoarse. Ryan, whoever said our slate was clean? You still owe me a partner, and you owe our child an Omega father. After picking up my pheromone supplements from the clinic, I rushed back to my apartment before dark. I stuck the key in the lock and turned it twice, just like always. The door clicked open. A familiar pheromone scent I hadn't smelled in a long time hit me. I froze on the spot, not daring to breathe. Hearing the noise, the man sitting on the bed reading a book looked up. "You're back?" A chill ran down my spine. I couldn't meet his eyes. I instinctively shielded the belly hidden under my jacket. My voice trembled. What are you doing here?" I had hidden myself so well these past few months. How did Julian Cole suddenly find out where I was? He was even inside my apartment. "You've really made me work to find you." Julian approached me slowly, step by step. I kept backing away until I was pressed against the door. He gripped my chin with one hand, forcing me to look up. "Tell me, why did you run?" My face went pale and I stammered, unable to find the words. I didn't know what kind of answer Julian wanted to hear. All I knew was that he was furious. His pheromones were radiating pure anger. I felt sick all over. I hadn't been exposed to any alpha pheromones during my pregnancy. The baby in my belly stirred restlessly. Julian picked up a file folder from the nightstand. "Too scared to say it? Is it because of this?" I didn't need him to open it. I knew exactly what was inside. My prenatal checkup reports. I flatly denied it. "It's not yours." Julian raised an eyebrow and glanced down at the file. 20 weeks pregnant. That lines up perfectly with your heat, doesn't it? His hand, which had been resting on my lower back, moved forward. He placed it directly on my swollen belly. I tensed up, too scared to move a muscle. "It's really not, Julian." I lowered my eyes, helpless. "You watched me take the pill that day." He was the one who gave me the pill himself. Julian's hand measured the curve of my stomach. His tone was non-negotiable. "Whether it is or not, you're coming back with me. I'm an orphan. I was adopted by the Cole family because I'm an S-rank Omega with a 94% compatibility match with Julian Cole. A union between two highly compatible S-rank individuals would most likely produce an S-rank alpha. So, the Cole's plan was for me to bear Julian's heir. But in the following years, tests showed a problem. The doctor said my womb wasn't fully developed, making conception difficult. The Coles didn't want to waste any more time on me and began searching for a new Omega for Julian. Until they found one, I remained with the family in an awkward position. Then came Julian's birthday. The family announced his engagement to the Lowell family. I couldn't handle it. My emotions spiraled out of control. I happened to see a bottle of red wine Julian had left on the kitchen island, and I secretly opened it. As I was drinking, I smelled an alpha's scent. That night, I saw Julian. His eyes were dark and intense, staring at me in a way that made my skin crawl with a strange sense of danger. "Is the wine good?" I nodded, then quickly shook my head. It was from Julian's private collection, so of course it was good. But I knew he'd be angry. He reached for me. I flinched away, afraid he was going to slap me. I accidentally grabbed the wrong bottle. I whispered, "What's done is done. I'm not mad at you." Julian suddenly smiled, gently stroking my head. The alcohol was starting to go to my head, making me dizzy. I vaguely heard him ask softly, "Ryan, do you want me to marry someone else?" The Julian in my haze was so kind, actually caring about my feelings. "No," I choked out. "Then who do you want me to marry?" "Ryan." I looked down, not answering. The alcohol took complete control of my body. My heat arrived ahead of schedule without any warning. Fueled by pheromones and wine, I grew bold and made a request. "Julian, I feel so awful. Everyone said I was going to be your Omega. Please, mark me." If he marked me, his engagement to someone else would be off. I could be with the person I loved, and my position in the Cole family wouldn't be so awkward anymore. Julian's self-control had always been impeccable. I tried everything I could, finally using my pheromones to push him into a rut. Everything after that became a blur. He was no longer gentle. No matter how I pleaded or begged for mercy, he showed me none. When I woke up, I felt a profound sense of loss. It wasn't until I saw the bruises covering my body and the mark on the back of my neck that I slowly realized it. Last night had been real, but Julian's tenderness hadn't lasted until morning. He brought me a pill and made me take it. I took it. I never thought the baby would still take root inside me. Faced with Julian, I had no right to refuse. I had no choice but to return to the Cole estate with him. The first thing he did was take me to the hospital for a battery of tests. While we waited for the results, he had me sign one document after another. The papers clearly stated the duration of my marriage to Julian and that custody of the child would belong to the Cole family. I agreed. I had no other choice. The Coles had adopted me for the sole purpose of having this child. I owed them a debt of gratitude, and this was how I had to repay it. Immediately after, Julian took me to City Hall to get a marriage license. "Why do we need to get married?" I asked, confused, as I stared at the marriage certificate. The expressions on both our faces in the photo were stiff. We didn't look like a couple at all. Besides, the Coles only wanted me to have a baby with Julian. The person he was supposed to marry was someone else. I thought the papers I signed today were just to protect the family's interests. Why did we have to get married after signing them? Julian looked at the documents, explaining without raising his head. The Cole family heir will not be an illegitimate child. I nodded in understanding and said no more. Julian dropped me off at his house and left again, as if he were just completing a task. He didn't stay a minute longer than necessary. I walked through the house and found there were no spare rooms for me. Eventually, I slowly returned to the sofa and sat down. Later, my consciousness began to fade. Someone was calling my name in a low voice. A soft, warm, wet touch on my face startled me awake. I opened my eyes and met Julian's deep gaze. "Why aren't you sleeping in bed? There are no other rooms." Julian's expression suddenly turned cold. His hand moved to my pregnant belly. "The baby's this big already, and you're still thinking about sleeping in a separate room?" I froze, then dumbly shook my head. It wasn't what I wanted. It was that I didn't dare. Julian hated being disturbed and especially disliked people entering his room without permission. Our marriage was temporary, a means to legitimize our child's birth. How could I dare to take it upon myself to sleep in his room? Julian swept me into his arms and walked briskly toward the bedroom. "Nothing can happen to this child. It's better for me to look after you if we're together." So it was for the baby. And here I was, thinking he might have some feelings for me. That's why he had spent months searching for me, and why he had unconditionally believed the child was his. Turned out he just wanted a child, and I just happened to be carrying his. Suppressing my disappointment, I mumbled, "I understand." The Cole family valued the child in my belly more than I could have imagined. I thought they would doubt the baby was Julian's. I don't know what Julian told them, but the family didn't show a hint of suspicion. The main estate sent over nutritious meals for me every single day. Even Julian was required to come home at a set time every day to be with me. After his daily temporary marking, he held me as we lay in bed. "Ryan, I have a business trip tomorrow." After so many years living with the Coles, I had long gotten used to not seeing him. Back then, I lived at the family estate while he lived here. Occasionally, at the patriarch's request, I would come over to bond with Julian. But every time Julian would say he had to go out for something, I would be left watching his back disappear through the door. After waiting for the required amount of time, I'd go back to the estate and report that I'd done my duty. But now, Julian was actually telling me his schedule. He seemed displeased that my mind was wandering and pinched my cheek. I studied his relatively gentle expression and whispered, "Then you'll have to give me some extra comfort today." It was the first time I had ever asked him for anything. I fidgeted, scratching my ear, terrified he would say no. I waited a long time, but he didn't answer.
I'm sleepy.
I'm going to bed. I rubbed my tired eyes, yawning to hide the tears welling up. Julian pressed a kiss to my lips, caught me completely off guard, and I just froze. We've done so much more than this. Why are you still reacting like that? Julian leaned in and kissed me again, his tongue parting my lips and tangling with mine. When the kiss ended, I fell asleep curled in his arms. The week Julian was gone felt much longer than usual. I had been so used to not seeing him for all those years. But this time, after just a few days, I felt an emptiness in my heart. The mark on the back of my neck was already fading, almost invisible. No matter how I tried to soothe it by releasing my pheromones, the baby was restless. A true Cole through and through. Not even born yet and already favoring Julian. When the staff from the estate delivered my meal, I couldn't help but ask when Julian would be back. The maid told me it would be a few more days. In the end, I had to find one of Julian's shirts and hold it to fall asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, thirsty. As soon as I left the room, I heard a strange noise downstairs. I jumped, pressing myself against the wall, not daring to move. A moment later, a familiar voice spoke in the darkness. "Ryan, why aren't you asleep?" I breathed a sigh of relief, turned on the lights and walked toward him. Julian studied my face. "Mrs. Liu said you threw up after dinner tonight?" I mumbled an instinctively drawing closer to him, following the scent of his pheromones. Julian's body was hot, and his pheromones were strong, orange-scented. The sweet and sour aroma quelled the nausea churning in my stomach. Julian placed his hand on my forehead, his voice hoarse. "Stop smelling." I looked up, confused and a little hurt. Even though our marriage wasn't for love, he was the baby's father and had been gone for 7 straight days. He was finally back, and he wouldn't even let me have his pheromones? My head cleared instantly, and I took a few steps back. "Fine, I won't," I muttered. Back in the room, I saw Julian rummaging through the medicine cabinet. The sound of a plastic wrapper tearing was unnaturally loud in the dark. Soon, the orange scent in the air faded significantly. I felt even more dejected. A moment later, Julian came closer. "Are you angry?" "No," I said, my voice muffled. A tool for producing an heir has no right to be angry. If he wouldn't give me his pheromones, the one who suffered was the baby in my belly. It had nothing to do with me. The next second, Julian flipped over and pinned me beneath him. In an instant, the chaotic images from that night flooded my mind. Now I was the one whose body was burning up. I swallowed hard, and my scent gland throbbed twice. Julian's thumb caressed my cheek as he asked, "Are you angry because I wouldn't let you scent me? Or for some other reason?" One of his hands moved down while the other massaged my scent gland. He kneaded it until my whole body went limp, and a soft moan escaped my lips. Realizing I was losing control of my body's reactions, I frantically grabbed his arm. "Julian, I'm not angry, just let me go. You don't like it?" Julian didn't stop, rubbing my gland until my pheromones flooded the room. Shouldn't he be the one releasing his pheromones for me? What was he doing messing with my scent gland like this? Julian nibbled on my earlobe. "I thought you really liked it that night. You couldn't get enough of me." I whimpered, unable to speak, and looked at him with teary eyes. Julian paused, then turned and bit down on my scent gland. The baby's presence in my belly grew stronger every day. At 7 months, the Cole family doctor came to the house. He said the patriarch had sent him to draw blood to test the baby's sex and pheromone rank. After the needle was removed, a fine, sharp pain lingered. I looked at Julian, then at the doctor and asked cautiously, "Did Grandpa Cole say what would happen if it's not an S-rank alpha?" The doctor exchanged a look with Julian. He stiffened and avoided my gaze, just telling me to get some rest. So I had to ask Julian. Julian gently stroked my head. "Whatever the sex, he's still our child, isn't he?" His words, however, did nothing to reassure me. Before, I didn't care about the baby's sex, as long as he was healthy. But after that blood draw, I found myself silently praying he would be an S-rank alpha. Otherwise, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to keep him. Late that night, Julian came back with the results. I was suddenly overcome with anxiety, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. As I stood up, Julian was already standing in front of me. What are the results? Julian's gaze lingered on my swollen belly for a moment before he spoke. It's an S-rank alpha. I let out a long sigh of relief, the knot in my chest finally loosening. Thank God. Fate was still looking out for me and my child. Julian also looked visibly relaxed and reached out to hug me. You've worked so hard, Ryan. Grandpa wants to see you. He's hosting a party at the estate next week. He wants you to come and chat with him. I wasn't paying attention to his words. My head bowed as I stared at the report over and over. Soon, the day to visit the Cole family estate arrived. The patriarch saw me alone. It was Mr. Cole who had orchestrated my adoption. I had always been grateful to him but also terrified of him. He had given me everything I had now. He could also take it all away. His sharp eyes swept over my swollen belly before landing on my face. Ryan, how have you been lately? I stood there stiffly, instinctively protecting my stomach. Everything's been fine, sir. Has Julian been taking good care of you? He asked. He's been very attentive. He comes home every day. I knew very well what Julian's attentiveness was for. Good, the patriarch said, taking a sip of his tea. Julian told me the child is an S-rank alpha. You know this child will be the heir. You must be careful with everything. You should know what you can and cannot do. The Cole family won't treat you unfairly, but don't get any ideas you shouldn't have. He glanced up at me, his eyes full of warning. My fingertips went cold. I had to dig my nails into my palms to maintain a calm facade as I quietly replied, I understand, sir. Mr. Cole closed his eyes again. It's Chris's birthday today. Go on downstairs and hang out with him. I felt like I'd been granted a pardon and practically fled the suffocating study. Downstairs, the banquet hall was a sea of elegant clothes and glittering jewels, filled with the clinking of glasses. The patriarch had called Julian away, so we couldn't leave just yet. I had no interest in joining the festivities and found a quiet corner to wait for Julian. Chris had never liked me, not since we were kids. I tried to avoid him, but he made a point to corner me. Chris's voice was full of mockery and disdain. Well, if it isn't our family's greatest contributor. How honored I am that you'd attend my birthday party while you're so heavily pregnant. All eyes in the vicinity suddenly turned to us, filled with scrutiny and curiosity. I couldn't sit still, feeling nothing but shame. I lowered my head, wanting to leave. Chris blocked my way. What's the hurry? Let's chat for a bit, Ryan. I dug my nails into my palm, not wanting to cause a scene. I need to go home. Chris looked me up and down, his gaze like he was examining an item about to expire. Ryan, you don't actually think that having my brother's baby makes you his omega for life, do you? No. Chris scoffed. It's just the two of us here. You can be honest. Don't tell me you don't like my brother. Don't you want to be by his side forever? My breath caught in my throat. I avoided his probing gaze. It was precisely because I wanted that. That's why I was pregnant with this child. Otherwise, I never would have been so bold as to use my pheromones to lure Julian. The baby in my belly suddenly moved. It reminded me of how Julian had been treating me lately. Ever since I'd started feeling the baby move, Julian had been interacting with him every night. He would tell the baby stories and play him prenatal music. The doctor said soothing pheromones could greatly alleviate the discomforts of pregnancy. So Julian gave me a temporary mark every single day. Afterward, he would stay by my side patiently, almost never leaving. What Chris was saying couldn't possibly be true. Julian wouldn't be like that. I met Chris's malicious gaze. This is between me and Julian. It's not your place to say anything. You really dare to dream, don't you? Chris's smile was cruel. Our family raised you for so long. You're just helping us by giving birth to an S-rank alpha. You're already getting off easy. Once the baby is born, my brother will divorce you, understand? And don't look so disbelieving. Do you really think my brother doesn't know I'm telling you this? I wanted to argue, but my throat felt blocked, unable to make a sound. Deep down, I had always known. Julian only married me because of the child. But his tenderness toward me didn't seem fake. Ryan, did you go mute? Chris moved closer, tugging at my arm impatiently. I lost my balance for a second and stumbled. Julian appeared just in time, pulling me into his arms. A thick, soothing wave of his pheromones enveloped me. Chris's face went white with fear. He scrambled to explain. Bro, I didn't do anything. He lost his balance on his own. I didn't push him. Julian's face was dark as he held me protectively, scolding, Chris, there's a time and a place for games. Chris apologized, looking defeated. I'm sorry. Julian swept me into his arms. Ryan is your sister-in-law. Show him some respect. Chris watched us leave with a resentful look on his face. The next day, I suddenly received an anonymous text. It was a candid photo of Julian and his originally intended fiancé, Nathan Lowell, picking out rings. The date was from the time Julian was on his business trip. The smiles on their faces were a piercing sight that sent a chill through me. Ryan, are you still not planning on leaving? Their wedding date is already set. They're just waiting to announce it. So the Cole family had never given up on the alliance with the Lowells. No wonder the patriarch and Chris had said those things to me. And what about Julian? All his care and tenderness, the daily pheromone comfort he never missed. Was it all just to ensure the baby was born without a hitch? Suddenly, I found it hard to breathe, my throat tightening. Without warning, a sharp, intense pain shot through my stomach. My vision went black in waves, and I slid to the floor, completely drained of strength. As my consciousness faded, I heard frantic footsteps and a maid's panicked cry. Mr. Ryan, what's wrong? Just then, the familiar scent of orange pheromones swept over me, thick with an unprecedented level of anxiety and fear. Ryan, don't fall asleep. Look at me. Julian was carrying me, striding quickly out of the house. My voice was a wisp of air. My stomach, it hurt so much. The engine roared, and the car shot forward like an arrow. On the way to the hospital, Julian kept trying to soothe me with his pheromones, his eyes filled with panic. I didn't know if he was worried about me or about something happening to the baby. During a brief lull in the contractions, I seized the moment of clarity and asked, Julian, once this baby is born, is my debt to the Cole family paid off? Julian's body clearly tensed. He gently brushed away the sweat-dampened hair from my face. I pressed on stubbornly. We'll be even, the Coles and I, right? Finally, his Adam's apple bobbed. His voice was low and clear. Yes. After you have the baby, you and the Cole family will be even. Once I had my answer, the searing pain returned. In that moment, I couldn't tell which hurt more, my stomach or my heart. All I could do was let the darkness swallow me whole. When I came to, the pungent smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. The anesthesia hadn't worn off yet, but the crushing weight on my organs was gone. Julian came in from outside. Seeing I was awake, he immediately released his soothing pheromones. Does it hurt? I shook my head gently, silently plotting my escape from this place. A moment later, Julian spoke again, his voice much hoarser than usual. Ryan, it's a boy. The forecast is an S-rank alpha. But he was premature, so he'll have to stay in an incubator for a while. He really was an S-rank alpha. So I truly had no chance of living with my child. I blinked hopelessly, my nose stinging. Julian opened his mouth, seeming to choose his words carefully. Do you want to see him? See the baby? Forget it. I was leaving anyway. It was better if I didn't. I was afraid that if I saw him, I wouldn't have the heart to give him to the Coles. I squeezed my eyes shut, as if that could block out the entire world. Ignoring Julian's hopeful expression, I refused in a raspy voice. No. The person by the bed seemed to freeze, his expression cautious. Just take a look. You're his Omega father. He's very cute. Once he's out of the incubator, I'll bring him over. Whatever you want, I said, turning my face away. Just go. I want to sleep for a while. I ignored him after that. As the anesthesia wore off, a dense wave of pain began to wash over me. I turned my head and watched Julian leave the room. Silently, I said goodbye. The moment he left, the patriarch's men appeared. Mr. Ryan, it's getting late. It's time to go. Without any regard for the fact that I had just had a C-section, the man took me away. 2 years passed in a flash. After leaving the Coles, I opened a small BB in a coastal town. With Julian's own words, our slate would be clean. I didn't have to live in fear of being dragged back like before. And I didn't have to feel as lost and out of place as I did living with the Coles. It felt so good to be out in the open. I turned into the cobblestone alley leading to my inn. Suddenly, a soft little bundle wrapped around my leg. A clear, plaintive little voice called out, "Papa." My whole body went rigid. I slowly looked down. It was a little boy, maybe 2 or 3 years old. His chubby little face looked strangely familiar, and for a moment, I was lost in a daze. Could it be him? Couldn't be sure. A wave of regret washed over me for not looking at him that one time. The little one called out "Papa" again. This time he said it very clearly. I bent down. "Sweetie, you have the wrong person." "No." The little guy hugged my leg even tighter. "Want Papa." "Hold." He could barely form a sentence and couldn't tell me his parents' contact information. I had no choice but to look through the small backpack he was wearing while releasing some pheromones to calm him down. And Omega came rushing over. "Aiden, how did you wander over here?" He scooped the little boy into his arms, his face etched with worry. "Papa." The Omega paused, then immediately broke into a smile. "It's my fault, sweetie. I wasn't holding your hand tightly enough. I'm sorry." Hearing this, I watched their tender father-son moment with a sense of loss. An indescribable emotion spread through my heart. He stood up with the child in his arms and finally noticed me standing there. He smiled at me. "I'm so sorry, sir. My apologies for the trouble." I managed to smile and reminded him, "You should be more careful with a child this young." Just as I finished, a familiar, deep male voice came from behind me. "Nathan, have you found Aiden yet?" I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. That overpowering orange scent was so familiar it was suffocating. Nathan walked over with the little boy. "Found him." Couldn't help but look back. Nathan handed the child in his arms to Julian. Julian didn't say a single word of blame to Nathan. Instead, he just told the child not to run off like that again. In an instant, it felt like an invisible hand had seized my heart, making it stop. After 2 years, I finally understood. What Chris had told me back then wasn't a lie. Julian really had only ever seen me as a tool to produce an heir. All the tenderness he showed me after bringing me back to the Cole estate was fake. The person he was really marrying was this man, Nathan. He was even making my baby call Nathan Papa. Julian stood a few feet away. His gaze was as dark as ink, locked onto my face. "Ryan?" His voice was hoarse, laced with a hint of hesitation and a tremor. "Did you just find Aiden?" I didn't answer, my eyes greedily drinking in the sight of the little boy in his arms. Nathan, being ignored, tried to interrupt. "Julian, I'm the one who found him." His face was beaming with joy. He even called me Papa just now. Julian paid him no mind, walking over to stand right in front of me, still holding the child. The little boy stirred in his arms and reached out for me. "Papa," he said, looking right at me, his voice sweet and childish. "Hold. His name is Aiden Cole. Ryan, do you want to hold him?" Julian nudged him a little closer. "He's a bit heavy, though." Meeting the little guy's expectant gaze, I almost couldn't stop myself from reaching out. I tore my eyes away, clenching my fists to control myself. I forced my voice to sound calm. "No, thank you. It's better if we don't have too much contact. You said it yourself, once the baby was born, we would be even. I've been keeping my promise. Please keep yours." After speaking, I glanced at Aiden. Perhaps because of my rejection, his little mouth was turned down in a pout, and his eyes were red. It made my heart melt, but I had to force myself not to look at him. Julian's arms tightened around the child, his face filled with desperation. "Ryan, whoever said we were even? You still owe me a partner, and you owe Aiden an Omega father." I was stunned. Being even was something Julian himself had promised. And now he was saying I still owed him? His partner, Nathan, was standing right behind him. What did he want from me? I didn't owe them anything anymore. I only resented them. They had been so protective of this child when I was pregnant. And now they were letting him get separated from them? If I hadn't found the child, who knows what kind of danger he might have been in. Julian, you were the one who promised. What's with this act now? Before I left, I couldn't help but glare at him, my voice cold. If your family can't even look after a child properly, you might as well give him back to me. Back at the inn, I stared blankly at my jacket. It seemed to still hold the faint, milky scent of Aiden. Along with it was a subtle, familiar hint of orange. Smelling the pheromones, my mind involuntarily conjured up images of them. Julian was much thinner than before, his features sharper and more defined. Aiden, on the other hand, had been raised to be plump and fair, utterly adorable. The wind chimes on the courtyard gate tinkled. A guest had arrived. I shook my head, forcing Julian's face from my thoughts. I fixed my expression, putting on a smile, but it froze when I saw who it was. It was Julian. He held the child in one arm and pulled a suitcase with the other. The child looked like he had just been crying, his eyelashes damp, and he seemed listless. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, but he didn't make a sound, just looked at me shyly. I instinctively glanced behind Julian. There was no one else, just him and the child. You? I looked at him warily. Mr. Cole, what can I do for you? Julian took out his ID, checking in. I smiled. Sorry, we're fully booked. I have a reservation. I checked, and sure enough, there was a reservation. I was running a business, I couldn't turn away a paying customer. Julian handed me his ID. His fingertips brushed the back of my hand, deliberately or not. I snatched my hand back as if burned and reluctantly checked him in. After taking the room key, Julian just stood there. He said, out of the blue, I sent Nathan back. I froze, my fingers unconsciously tightening. I didn't speak, nor did I look at him. He didn't seem to need my response and continued on his own. I've raised Aiden by myself. There's been no one else, and certainly not Nathan. Today was an accident. Aiden was sleeping and he took him while I was on a video call. My family has been pushing me to get involved with him for the past 2 years. I refused, so he tried to use Aiden to get to me. Today's incident gave me the perfect reason to get rid of him for good. He paused, then placed Aiden on the front desk. Ryan, when Aiden called out for Papa just now, he was calling for you, not anyone else. Aiden beamed at me and called out sweetly, Papa. My heart skipped a beat. Didn't the Cole family demand that I have no contact with the child? Why would Julian teach him to call me Papa? And why would he bring him here? I couldn't figure it out. All I could do was put on a stern face and say stiffly, Julian, take your son to your room. Don't disturb my work. It was the off-season, so the inn wasn't very busy. With the young woman who worked for me covering the desk, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. But every time, I'd run into a certain someone who was driving me crazy. Julian would just smile. What a coincidence. I'd just scowl at him. After a few times, I started to suspect Julian had put a tracker on me. Julian, is this fun for you? Following me around like this? Julian shrugged. I came here for a vacation. Is it so strange for me to be out with Aiden? No, it wasn't strange. But it was very strange that wherever I went, he and Aiden would appear. Aiden held up a small ball, inviting me. Papa, play. I couldn't bring myself to refuse and played with him for a long time. The sun slowly set. Aiden's energy finally ran out, and he fell asleep in my arms. Looking at his peaceful, sleeping face, my heart melted completely. I should have gone through with my second plan to run away with the baby. Back at the inn, I placed the child on the bed. I lingered by the bedside, watching him reluctantly for a long time. I was just starting to scheme about how to get Julian to let me see the child more often. Suddenly, a shadow fell over me, enveloping me. Before I could react, I was pulled into a warm, strong embrace. It had been so long since I'd been this close to an alpha. I froze for a moment before I started struggling frantically. Julian, what are you doing? Don't move, Julian said, holding me tighter. Ryan, can I just hold you? He had already forced me into his arms. What was the point of asking for my consent now? Unable to break free, I stomped on his foot in frustration. Julian grunted, burying his face in my shoulder. His hot breath tickled the skin near my scent gland, making my body tremble. I bit the inside of my cheek and reminded him coldly, "Julian, don't forget we broke up a long time ago. What do you think you're doing, holding me like this?" Perhaps the reminder worked. Julian slowly released me and pulled me to sit on the edge of the bed. I stared at Aiden's little chest rising and falling, lost in thought. Julian spoke tentatively. "I can show you pictures of Aiden when he was a baby. Ryan, in exchange, will you let me hold you?" I had to admit the offer was incredibly tempting. For the past 2 years, the Cole family had protected Aiden so fiercely that I had no way of knowing anything about him. After a long internal struggle, I reluctantly agreed. Okay. Julian opened a photo album dedicated to Aiden. While I was looking at the pictures, he pulled me contentedly into his arms. As a newborn, Aiden was tiny and frail. In Julian's hands, he looked like a fragile little doll. It was a world away from the plump, doughy, adorable boy he was now. Julian wiped a tear from the corner of my eye and leaned in to kiss it away. "That's all in the past. Aiden's quite a handful now. Even an alpha like me gets tired from holding him for too long." Why did you nickname him that?" "Because these past 2 years, he and I have both missed you so much." Julian suddenly leaned in to kiss me. I turned my head away quickly. He only managed to brush my lips. Julian looked at me, dejected, and whispered, "Ryan, I miss you so much. Please don't make me leave." After that day, Julian seemed to stop being a guest at the inn. He began to truly integrate into the daily life of the place. It was a small business, so I didn't have many employees. When a guest checked out, I was usually the one who cleaned the room. Julian always volunteered to help. He'd clumsily help change the sheets and tidy up. He patiently learned how to trim the overgrown flowers and plants in the courtyard, almost ruining one of my favorite plants in the process. He also tempted me every day with photos and videos of Aiden, just to earn a hug. Sometimes he'd push his luck and ask for a kiss. I reluctantly agreed, but nothing more. And little Aiden became my tiny shadow, following me everywhere I went. Whenever I had a free moment, he'd cling to me, wanting me to play with his toys or read him picture books. Sometimes he'd even help me water the little potted plants at the front desk. The picture of a family of 3 that had once only existed in my dreams was slowly becoming a reality right before my eyes. It was warmer than I ever could have imagined. Julian and Aiden had just vanished from the big city. When the patriarch found out, he sent several groups of people to the inn to find them. He even applied pressure and made threats. Of course, I was no match for Mr. Cole. On top of that, Julian had recently started asking me to sleep in his room at night to be with Aiden. When I refused, he'd show up at my door with Aiden in his arms, both of them putting on a pitiful act. His persistence was wearing me down. So the patriarch's pressure was actually a bit of a relief. I decided to talk to Julian. I would tell them to go back, and in return, he could just let me see Aiden more often. But Julian wouldn't agree. "Ryan, can we just not be apart anymore?" I stared at the closed gate of the inn and didn't answer. Julian licked his lips, studying my expression, and said softly, "Actually, the night of my birthday, I wasn't in a rut." I looked at him, stunned and confused. "Not in a rut? Then why did he?" Julian seemed to steel himself before finally speaking. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have waited this long to tell you. Ryan, I've liked you for a very long time, but I was never sure how you felt. Grandpa wanted me to marry Nathan. I didn't want to, and when I realized you didn't want me to either, I went along with it and pretended you had lured me. The pill I gave you that day wasn't a contraceptive. It was just a vitamin. I was planning to propose to you right after it happened, but you left. Later, when you gave birth, I had no idea Grandpa's men took you away the moment I left. If I had known, I never would have left your side for a second." He had never told me what he was thinking. After the child and I were forcibly separated from him by his family, Julian was now telling me he had liked me all along. What was the point of saying all this now? After a long moment, I swallowed the lump in my throat and said hoarsely, "It's too late, Julian." "It's not too late. As long as you give me a chance, it's never too late. Julian gripped my hand tightly, as if afraid I would disappear the next second. Ryan, I already run the Cole family now. I'll handle my grandfather. All I need is for you to say yes. You don't have to worry about anything else. I looked at him, hesitating. I didn't nod. I didn't speak. Right in front of me, Julian made a video call to the patriarch. Mr. Cole's grim face appeared on the screen. I tensed up instinctively, remembering our meeting in his study. Julian squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. He aimed the camera at me and Aiden, who was in my arms. Aiden was sitting on my lap, giggling and playing with a toy. Grandfather, I told you before I brought Aiden here. My partner, and Aiden's Omega father, will only ever be Ryan. He's the love you brought to me when I was just a boy. If you accept that, we'll bring Aiden home. If you don't, he paused, his tone resolute. Then Aiden and I will just stay here forever. Before Mr. Cole could react, Julian hung up the call. After that day, the Cole family stopped sending people to disturb the peace and quiet. In the afternoon, Julian placed Aiden in my arms. Ryan, I have something to take care of. Can you watch Aiden for me? I was more than happy for Julian to get busy, and I showered Aiden with kisses. As night fell, Julian returned from his errands. He was wearing a suit again, a rare sight, and his tall, straight posture was captivating. Having not seen him for half the day, Aiden's clinginess kicked in. He started calling for a hug from across the courtyard. Dada, hold Aiden. Julian scooped him up with one hand and then took mine with the other. Come on, let's take Aiden for a walk on the beach. Under a sky full of stars, the waves gently lapped at the shore, making a soft, rushing sound. Aiden ran around on his little bare feet, playing in the sand. Julian stopped walking and turned to face me. The soft moonlight fell on his face, outlining his deep-set features. He suddenly dropped to one knee. Julian, what are you doing? I yelped, startled. Ryan, Julian said, looking up at me, a velvet box in his hand. The person I love has always been you. No one else. I was wrong before. I thought a marriage certificate and an agreement could prove everything, but I forgot that the most important thing is to say it out loud. From now on, I promise I won't keep everything bottled up inside. I'll tell you everything I'm thinking and feeling. He seemed nervous and took a deep breath. Ryan, will you give me a chance to get back together? Aiden had, at some point, stopped playing in the sand and was now standing beside us. He clapped his little hands excitedly. Papa, give chance. The sea breeze brushed against my cheeks, carrying the orange scent from Julian. I stared at him, stunned. Julian wasn't impatient. He held up the ring, waiting patiently for my answer. I looked at the two similar faces before me, one big and one small, and slowly extended my hand. Julian, I'll give you one more chance. I hoped he would keep his word and not let me down. Julian's hand trembled as he slid the ring onto my finger. He pulled me into his arms, overjoyed. He held me so tightly it felt like he was trying to merge me into his own body. A week later, a temporarily closed sign hung on the inn's gate. A car sent by the Cole family was parked at the end of the alley. Aiden was sleepy as I held him, rubbing his eyes drowsily. Julian finished loading the luggage, then turned to look at us, his expression gentle. Ryan, Aiden, shall we go home? Aiden waved his chubby little hands and repeated in his sweet, childish voice, go home. Then father and son both turned to look at me. I smiled and nodded. Yes, let's go home.